Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Harsetti, the ML5 boss for this episode. It's very early in the morning, it's about 5 a.m. And I just wanted to talk about her. I haven't even made these initial thoughts videos in a very, very long time. As most of you guys know, if you guys are following me on YouTube. She is overpowered to a point where she kind of reminds me of Bellion. Zio didn't do it as much as for me, but I made my initial thoughts for Zio back then as well. But the mechanics of which this character brings to not just the meta, but to the game itself, is absolutely insane. We'll talk about this, of course, but as per my initial thoughts video, since I'm already here anyway, I did do an extensive thought in terms of the art and visuals of Harsetti back when they did they kind of like preview video. So I mean, if you're watching my videos, it's not long ago, so I'm not gonna go through that too much. This screenshot I wanted to point out though, this is pretty interesting though. The friendship level 10, if you get there, you can obtain this kind of image, and I think they've been doing this for a handful of characters. I haven't been keeping track, but she definitely has one. I think ML Luna had one, but I think it's kind of going forward. They're really trying to oversell it. That was what was confusing for me too. I was like, hey, where do we get this kind of like idle game model animation? And I didn't really get to see like how that fit in with her usual art like this in terms of her character screen. Her imprint is self-imprint is HP, I believe, and then the imprint release is defense. And this is gonna also lean into, it's very, very powerful. It's also gonna lean into what I'm gonna be talking about in terms of her overall power. It's just pretty crazy. It's not really surprising, I guess, that they would go for this, but at the same time, I'm kind of surprised. I think that's what people are saying. There was this hero in Summoner's War called Leo, which literally slows down everybody's speed, I think up to himself, I believe. I think that was how it worked, or it halved it or something. It may have been two separate heroes. One was having the speed and the other one was like what basically Harsetti's doing. But I think even Harsetti's kit is even more powerful than Leo. But if you play Summoner's War, you can definitely correct me on that. But this is what I hear. Regardless, now I kind of see where that nightmare is coming from. Let's talk about her base stats first. We have her as a mage, and she is a Libra. If you're familiar with Libra, you should be. If you're not, you should be. ML Luna is a Libra. So the base speed is actually pretty good. 124. That is just a bit off of Ran, being the fastest base speed in the game. She's a dark mage instead of a light, and yes, the self-imprint there is 18% health, which is really good for herself because she's a HP scaling hero. The speed, in my opinion, at least at this point of the game, isn't that important because you can build her at almost any speed and still be pretty comfortable. I think the way you will use her. We'll talk about that when we dive into the kit, but just to know that base speed is there to kind of future-proof her, and I think Smilegate like deliberately made it that way, because if you see it again, it's kind of like Zio didn't really need to have a really fast base speed, although his base speed has not been bad. He didn't need a really fast base speed just because of what his kit brings, and Harsetti is gonna fall along the same line. But I do think that if we focus our attention not on the speed so much, but the defense and health, that's where we'll get to more of the, oh my goodness, what was Smilegate thinking kind of thing. The base attack is quite low for what she needs to be. She's going to be a HP bruiser, or scaler rather. And so she doesn't really need the attack. So they kept the base attack low in this star sign, and it works out for her. The defense is good at 613. Not the highest for mages, but it's pretty good. The health is, of course, what's amazing about this mage class, is that it's at 6k health. So realistically, you're kind of looking like a warrior, I would say, like a warrior knight, but then you have the base speed and you are a mage. Now, the thing is, though, her being a mage is maybe, at the point that I'm thinking right now, is maybe what will make her more balanced. Here's what I mean. If she was a knight, she'd be absolutely broken. If she was a warrior, probably just as broken, just because you have so much more access to artifacts that can self-heal, like Sigurd Scythe, Golden Rose, etc., etc. I'm talking about warrior there. And then as a knight, so much more like mitigation style stuff. And as a mage, the very, very like big benefit as a mage is usually that they can hold the book. But the thing with Harsetti is that she doesn't lend well to any cleave team. So like your own cleave team as an offensive player using Harsetti in your team, she's not gonna really help that. So that's the part I would say that, like, if you wanna, needle in the haystack, kind of find like what are the things that Smaug held back on, I definitely have to say that her being a mage is probably going to be one of the quote unquote weaker elements of it. And it might not be, because the thing is, as Smaug releases more artifacts, depending on if they want to make Harsetti stronger, more effective, there could be some crazy mage artifact that I'm not thinking of. Maybe it exists right now. I don't know, like Fire Eda's artifact or anything like that. I don't know. I'm thinking off the top of my head at this point. Either way, let's focus on the skills, because ultimately, I think her kit lends well to that. If the artifact isn't, OP on her, she can probably be a hero that doesn't even use an artifact. I don't think she can use Etika Scepter, because if I remember correctly, she is not a focus, but a fighting spirit. I might be wrong, but let's take a look. Right now it's 5 a.m. for me. So pretty much right after maintenance, 5 a.m. Central Time in the US. So I think it's like right after maintenance, not long. So skill 2 here, the passive, and I'll say this, it's the passive makes her broken in terms of brings that boss mechanic that I talk about. I mean, everybody knows this, but if you've been on my stream recently, I would have said this. If people were like, "Oh, what do you think Harsetti will do?" And I said she's gonna bring a broken mechanic that we'll never see. We haven't seen. Archdemon Shadow, when she was released, like, wasn't even broken when she was just released. She got buffed, right? Keep in mind. And seal was her thing, because sealing and she ended up being reworked, was actually pretty darn good for the time being. Like, I remember she dominated a full season of World Arena, but the sealing was like her real specialty. The seal was pretty insane. It was not a passive, it was an active skill or debuff that caused all passives to go away. Like, if you think about it, even with Harsetti right now, even with Bellion, that in and of itself is pretty nuts. But ML Luna took over that, being able to soul burn it, strip your immunities, blah blah blah. ML Luna ended up just being like, way too powerful. Like, took this skill nullifier, or not skill nullifier, seal, took that way overboard, so that Archdemon Shadow is just, it doesn't matter. Archdemon Shadow's own passive to reduce damage would be sealed by Luna. So Archdemon Shadow, like, kind of out of the question when it comes to bosses. Strays at that time was also pretty OP too, because again, gear, artifacts in terms of mitigation, very, very few players could survive a Strays S3. Now that's not so much the case anymore, with a lot of heroes like Senya and stuff like that, having passives that, over exceeds what gear can do in terms of giving you max HP, the bulkiness, and ML Ilanav being able to, reduce defense pen effects up to a certain amount. So things like that is obviously, it's going to be overpowered, power creeped rather. Bellion at this point was kind of power creeped by Frida's existence, but Frida ML Luna existence is no longer, anything. I mean, Frida really, if you look at Harsetti, Frida only lasted like about 2 weeks, maybe 3 at the most, because Harsetti's not released. But with Harsetti out, this totally wipes the board with what would have been the norm. So in a full, like, definition of the sense, Harsetti is a meta changing hero But like I said, she brings such crazy mechanics to the table that realistically it's gonna be annoying going forward. Of course, I'm gonna talk about what I think Smoggett will do after her. What are viable options? But back from my rant, skill 2 passive, law of I'm just gonna say it's Skuggyheim. I think in the video it actually pronounces this, but I'm not gonna play it right now to find out. But at the start of battle, speed of the caster is fixed going forward. The speed of all heroes except for the caster is limited to the maximum of 90% of the caster's speed. On the caster's turn, combat readiness increase effects of all heroes is not applied. So this law only applies to PvP. Now, so here are 3 basic mechanics that, again, my interpretation might be wrong, but looking at the battle itself in terms of their showcases, this seems to be the case. And I think, again, like what I said, most people understanding where this is kind of coming from, iteration of what Leo did in Summoner's War. At the start of battle, speed of the caster is fixed going forward. This is whatever speed she's at. I don't know if speed buff is going to affect it, but I think what it's really saying is that going forward, like let's say she's at 100 speed once the battle starts, applying a speed buff won't change the outcome of the CR in a sense. I think that's what the first line is stating. I think the second line is a bit more obvious. So speed of all heroes except the caster is limited to a maximum of 90% of the caster's speed. Now, in the fight preview, they show the CR on purpose because it shows that ML Haste and Sid, which I mean, I guess I can scroll there as well. Let me go there. They showcase it on purpose. I mean, here it is. So they have a Sid, they have ML Luluka, they have DDR, and then they have ML Haste. The only thing is that you can also see that a Tywin, Laya, and Ciarman is also within that realm. We're talking about a couple percent, right? So within 4%, we have ML Haste. Now, what the skill is obviously stating is that, again, let's use 100 speed, even though Harsetti can't be 100 speed, but theoretically, is you use 100 speed because the math is just easier to do this way. Harsetti's 100 speed. That means everybody is capped at 90 maximum. And I think what this showcase is trying to show is that the Luluka, the Sid, the DDR, and the Haste are probably built to what people would build them to. So maybe Haste is around 100, 170, 180 speed. Sid is maybe at 290, 300 speed. Luluka with the Sid speed imprint and DDR with the speed imprint is probably around like 280, 270 speed. I'm not talking about what the potential of the heroes are going to be. I'm not talking about the people with the crack gear, 310 speed Sid, ML Luluka. You kind of get the gist here is that no matter what speed you're at, you're going to be capped at 90% or lower because there is still a CR RNG. It will basically force them to be below 90%. So the hard cut is 90% because you can't like according to the passive you can't go over that. So you're never gonna see a 91%. It's gonna be 90% and then therefore go backwards. What does that mean? That means if you have a hero that is like Sid 300 speed and then you have like an ML Haste that's like 180 speed, none of that really matters. Because realistically, they're going to be capped at Harsetti's max speed, which again, in our theory, in our concept here, is at 100. That means everybody gets pushed down. That means you cannot speed tune. So on the defensive side, you can't speed tune to counter Harsetti because the RNG would be that everybody is capped at 90, and then from 90 onwards, you have that 5% CR randomness. But also, the passive does read that all heroes on the field. So that means in your own team, so going offensively now, it wouldn't really make sense. So basically, with Harsetti on the field, you cannot even guarantee that you will be faster than your opponent, even if you have faster base speed. So in this diagram or in this image, let's say a Tywin, your a Tywin is like a Ran. The Ran wouldn't, like, it might not even be the one that goes after Harsetti. That's basically what I'm getting to. So anyways, this makes the passive, the S2, extremely overpowered in the sense that it basically nullifies almost all of your speed gear. It nullifies almost any strategy going into this. So, I mean, there are obviously things that can still kind of carry through. The only way that I think you can bypass this at this moment is someone like Zio. You can't ML Luna her because she gets the first turn, and again, your ML Luna, even if it's like 310 speed, wouldn't necessarily get the turn right after her. If so let's say Harsetti's on a defense team, you can't bring ML Luna in and hope that you could seal this passive, because at the start of the battle, it's not even at the start of her turn. That's one of the things that is like, they could refine her, to be honest. Like if people kind of make a call out on Harsetti's overpoweredness and all that, we're gonna see just basically it's I don't think Smilegate is gonna nerf her. They're not gonna change it. It's kind of like what I see with Bellion. When Bellion was released, only the opponents, so the opponent who doesn't have Bellion, only their souls like don't gain, but the Bellion's team, they can gain souls. And at that time I thought that it would have been more fair if they just flat out wiped all souls, but now I don't really care, right? Because Harsetti's a thing. So here's what's going to happen. I think every guild war is probably going to run a Harsetti. It's gonna be maybe slightly easier in guild war to deal with it. And in arena, every defense is gonna have Harsetti, but it's basically no cleave is viable. I think right now there is only maybe one potential, I'm gonna quote unquote this as well, cleave that's viable, is Zio and ML Rowana. Their kind of effects seem to be the only thing that can potentially beat her. So the third line on the caster's turn, combat readiness increase effects of all heroes is not applied. So that, like, thank goodness, right? So this means that Zio's passive to be able to cut 20% CR would probably beat her, because he'd be capped at the 90% speed or whatever. Like, his speed would still be affected, but he would get that 20% CR. So theoretically speaking, if you see a Harsetti, let's say on defense, yeah, let's position this so like we can kind of visualize this. Harsetti is on defense, and Zio, you take Zio into her. Zio will theoretically, based on how these mechanics are, will get the turn, because he has 20% CR on top of that 90% speed, which makes him, I think it would be additive, so it would make him at 110. So it will generate him the first turn. He might be able to push Harsetti back. And this is also the thing too, because if Harsetti on a defense is going to be as annoying as she sounds, I think people might make her bulky, but then also give her ER. So make her base speed and give her ER. And I think that's going to be the case, but I could be wrong. Zio into like a green Litica, because green, like if you land the debuff, but it has to be his silence. Green Litica could probably push back with her artifact. do her unbuffable, blah blah blah, and then you might get a cleave going. You have ML Rowana still in the mix as well. But if you fight a defense team with Harsetti on it, with like ML Ilanav, with all these knights that can do damage over time, you cannot, even with a Zeo cleave and all the CR manipulation I just kind of orchestrated, like you think like, oh, maybe you have a Jacko in there, you can get somewhere. I don't think that works. I think a defense team will end up being 2 knights, Harsetti, plus a reviver. It could probably be a ML Haste. It could probably be a Destina or something like that. And then you can't really cleave it. So ultimately, I think in Arena, the meta will fully shift. And anyone who can figure out a cleave that is consistent, that can cleave that theory crafted defense that I just talked about, will be the copy, will be the go-to. But I think that the cleave options are going to be so limited that any type of cleave that breaks out of my theoretical mold will be quickly countered by someone that can figure out a defense team. Because realistically, what Harsetti does is it ultimately forces the opponent to only cleave in a certain way. Whereas in the past, we had probably, when I talk about the past, I'm talking about the near past, probably have like 3-4 different cleave teams to deal with 3-4 different meta defenses. Frida and ML Luna gave arena defense a hard time because honestly, they kind of force a defense to be a certain way. And then therefore it opens up to different vulnerabilities. But since the game is predicated on CR and tuning for a swift and fast attack, Harsetti nullifies that. So realistically, she's game breaking, right? So anyways, let's move on from this. So the S2 obviously being the pinnacle of what's going to shift the meta. But the thing is, her S3 and S1 are not even bad. So that makes her OP. She is a must-have. She's also a must get for using transmits to get her slates. I'm assuming that's how it's going to be still. But yeah, you can see that. Yeah, they're showcasing this again. Which lends to what I was talking about before. During her animation sequence in the previous video, saying that how nonchalant her face is, how minimal her body action is, and yet she has this, world exploding power. It really does fit her kit. Again, if you're watching my art videos and stuff like that, I made that prediction she's going to be really overpowered, or at least that's how Smallgate wanted to portray her. I had no idea it would be this powerful though. But anyway, skill 3, attacks all enemies, decreasing buff duration by 2 turns, up to 100% chance, so including the Mola up to +7, so keep that in mind. The 75 there is not counting the skill enhancement, so if you +7, you have 100% chance to inflict unable to counterattack, which is pretty good. I think that's what they gave ML Elena at first, if I remember correctly, and then they quickly shifted it to a passive. I think I understood why, but I think in terms of Harsetti's case, this is going to work. Now, I just actually thought about this. If you're using Harsetti on an offensive team and you are worried about counterattacks, I think what is interesting is that Frida still works with Harsetti. It's just that Frida doesn't work into a defensive team with Harsetti as much as you would like. But if Harsetti is going into a Bellion defensive team and you want to soul burn so that you can, make sure you're guaranteed to take the decreasing the buff duration by 2 turns, this is pretty broken too. I was just thinking about this. I didn't think about this before, but removing debuff duration by 1 made like ML Landy's passive pretty OP. So she had the anti-crit buff, right? Now ML Luna came about and has like strip all buffs and stuff like that. So it's not the same, but this is still pretty darn good. Basically it still keeps ML Landy like almost unusable that I'm thinking of right now, but of course you're not sealing her, right? But they're unable to counterattack. So 100%, you're still stripping the immunity, you're still stripping the protection set, you're still stripping the anti-crit buff and stuff like that. But unable to counterattack, and then also unbuffable for 2 turns. Penetrates the target's defense. Oh yeah, she is focused. She is a focus hero, I was right. When focus is full, consumes it all, increasing damage dealt. Damage dealt increases proportional to caster's max health. So, focused hero, when focus is full, consumes it all, increasing damage dealt. I think that the penetrating target defense is pretty OP. Focus full being pretty OP. It does require 2 focus, so I think what this means is like when you're and it's on a 4-turn cooldown, when your focus is full on the 2nd round. So if you use this on the 1st turn, I don't think the when focus is full thing applies. But when you're using it on the wraparound, which again she has I think a ton of advantage. Again, her speed is set and everybody's at 90 or below on her turn. I don't think it matters. Like I think she'll get her focus, really quick. So actually it makes her pretty OP in defense, and I think even in offense teams, now that I think about this. But yeah, I'm gonna check something here on my phone. Politis, decrease the amount of resource gained at the start of the battle and at the end of the turn. Okay, so no, sorry. So yeah, with ML Politis, it makes her so that the focus doesn't matter. But either way, even with ML Politis on the field, I don't think it helps Harsetti. Like it's not a counter against Harsetti, but it definitely lowers the focus, of course, because your resource. Again, speed of the caster is fixed going forward. Yeah, does that mean that she can't get speed down and also can't get speed buff? But I'm just thinking out loud. What are all the ramifications? I think. Yeah. Anyways, so the counterattack portion, unable to counterattack, is probably going to be more useful when you use Harsetti on the offensive stage. Because on a defensive stage, most people might not necessarily be using counterattack, and they probably would have some form of what's it called? Cleanse. So because Harsetti uses an AoE attack on the S3, and she gets the first turn, and most likely she's going to do that. So on an offensive team, if you're going into Harsetti to cleanse that easily, you would use Blue Elena, right? Because Blue Elena's CR boost probably can cut, but then again, like I guess you would cleanse, but it would still be her turn. So ML Elena can't. So Blue Elena can't cut before your team to cleanse it all. That's gonna be interesting. I'm just thinking about this because you're ultimately going to be defaulting into some kind of potentially auto comp. So I think a lot of people were theory crafting like Arya coming back, but you need Arya to be able to, someone has to cleanse the unbuffable first. Assuming the Harsetti is high effectiveness. So I could see both ways actually being played in a defensive Harsetti. One with effectiveness and maybe hybrid ER, or one full effectiveness, full hybrid ER. I'm not quite sure. We're gonna see. I think all the players who run her on defense are gonna tally up what are the common offenses into my defense, into my Harsetti, and then they'll build her that way. But again, like I said, I don't think effectiveness or effect resistance is a waste on her because both have high utility when you can force players to be slower than you, and also mess up speed tuning. So I think that it's not gonna be troll builds when they have like hybrid. I think like when people were running Archdemon Shadow, like mix ER and effectiveness, that was like pretty crazy. And then the thing is, you don't even need speed. So Harsetti can get more stats because she can run like a HP boot or maybe even a defense boot, and still technically do what she needs to do. So anyway, so the when the focus is full, consumes it all, increasing the damage dealt. Penetrates the target's defense. Again, we're talking about full pen, right? This is not even limited. So like in and of itself is pretty darn crazy. Ilanav will counter this though, because Harsetti cannot seal, and you can't seal anything before Harsetti S3. So ML Ilanav's value also went up, just in case people thought that she was kind of garbage. I never thought she was kind of garbage. I thought she was really good into Guild War, but her value definitely went up with the skill being full pen. Let's keep going. So yeah, so when the I'm just looking at what the video subtitle is saying. I think it's GM says, I think is the voiceover. Yeah, so pretty OP now I think about it. I mean, she doesn't start with any focus though, keep in mind. So she just does that at a 2 out of 5 focus in that preview there. Now S1's pretty darn broken too. So attacks the enemy with a 60% chance up to actually, is it just 60? It's locked to 60%, thank goodness. Decrease defense for 1 turn. When it's the caster's turn, uses en passant. I want to pronounce that right. I think GM says did a really good job on that. As an extra attack. Damage dealt increases proportional to caster's max health. So again, HP scaling bruiser, we're gonna see at least 20k HP plus for sure. If some stats are even going into ER and effectiveness. Attacks all enemies with a 60% chance to decrease attack for 1 turn. Damage dealt proportional to caster's max health. So soul burn, effect chance of Gambit is increased to 100%. So, oh, never mind. You know what? Gambit as a whole. So, oh my goodness. Okay, that's actually, no, I have to reread this. So, en passant increases 60% chance to decrease the attack, but then your Gambit effect chances. So, it's not even talking about skill 1 effect chance. It's talking about Gambit's effect chance, which means both are applied. So, that means it is a 75% defense break. It is a 75% decrease attack. That's insane. And then effect chance of Gambit increases to 100%, and the decreased defense effect, if you soul burn it for only 10 souls, is 2 turns. It is a single target skill, but ends up being an AoE. Pretty nutty. I guess ML Sirmia will actually be pretty good here too. I'm thinking about this now out loud, because she's going to use en passant, and it's always going to be guaranteed to have that extra attack that's AoE. So ML Sirmia value also went up, especially with Lionheart Sirmia's recent buff. I think ML Sirmia is going to be one of the standard offensive heroes into Harsetti, if I'm not mistaken. That's my prediction at least. And I think I'm going to be accurate about that. I think Ario might have a play. Blue Elena might have a play, and potentially even, you know what? I just thought about this. ML Akates as well. Offensively speaking, not the light Akates. She's gonna be good because she has CR boost that is only after her turn, and Harsetti can't do anything to reset her skills. To lower cooldown, to seal, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's just that cleavers in terms of arena and guild war, when going into Harsetti, are not going to be able to cleave. Again, like I said, potentially the Zeo thing. Realistically, all arena is going to be is that it's going to be a bit more boring. You'll probably still be very consistent, to be honest. I don't see Harsetti being super powerful as a damage dealer. So if you're going into a Harsetti team, you're most likely not going to cleave. So you're not going to be squishy. You're going to be bruisery. You might have like a DDR, lower those, get some injury going on that defense team and stuff like that. All really what she'll do is like she's gonna stall. In World Arena though, it's going to be super annoying with Harsetti because you have the pick 3 ban, pick 3 lock, ban lock. You have 2 pre bans. If you are a first turn player, there is no way either you're picking Harsetti first, or you're not allowing the opponents to pick, so you have to pre ban her. So at least going forward, I think Harsetti is going to be very, very influential. People are going to have to use pre-ban on Harsetti if they want to cleave, but this makes them more vulnerable to what they're comfortable with, because to my knowledge, I think there are already 2 almost perma bans that you have to ban if you're playing cleave, and the bans obviously change if you're your first pick or second pick, but regardless, Harsetti is going to be so influential that you have to ban her if you're playing first turn. Because if you're playing first turn, you want the advantage that you're probably going to take first turn, and you're not going to allow your opponent to take Harsetti. So like I said, either you're taking Harsetti or you're not. But if the theory goes forward, then not everybody who is second turn is always going to pre-ban Harsetti too. They're not going to allow you to have it because you dominate the fight. So realistically speaking, I think Harsetti is not going to really make the light of RTA, except the fact that, maybe on the first week when content creators are trying to see how strong she is, theoretically speaking, Harsetti just has no, I just don't see her getting through. It's going to be a very interesting E7WC next year with Harsetti. So here's my predictions going forward. And I think this is going to be a no-brainer, right? Just like how Frida can have a passive that starts at the beginning and that can bypass Bellion's universal passive, which is the opponents don't get any souls, can't generate any souls as long as she's on the field. We can very well easily get something that would be ignore all CR things. I mean, Zio technically already has it, right? But what I'm talking about is we could potentially get another hero that has utility or is a full-on damage dealer that has a passive that puts the frontliner or any slot of your imagination where the teammate does not get affected by it. So that's the easy way out. The other one would be that there will be more bridges, more options to combo with Zio. So keep in mind that if Bellion wasn't a thing, Zio Soberin will still allow heroes like ML Ludwig to be very effective, because you could Soberin Zio's S3 and then you boost up ML Ludwig. But like I said, that's a non-Bellion world. I just can't see that, a Zio plus Frida plus ML Ludwig is going to be a combo. So therefore, if the defense has Harsetti and a Bellion on it, you're not going to see some crazy cleave. You're probably going to run out of steam too quick, especially with people trying to bait you to cleave a Harsetti team. Like I said, it's going to be most likely 4 super bulky characters on the team, with one of the bulky characters being a Destino or ML Haste for a revive. That's how I'm seeing it. That's what I'm predicting. So again, like I said, there's the two ways that Smilegate will bypass Harsetti. And I mean, for as long as they've allowed Bellion to live and not have a direct hard counter, which to me, the hard counter to Bellion is literally Frida. When we talk about hard counter, we talk about a mechanic being trumped, right? So it took so long for Frida to be released to be countering Bellion. If they take the same timeline, they're going to be releasing heroes or kits or artifacts that have somewhat of a bypass to Harsetti. There's always going to be something that's not super opposing 180, but they're going to introduce little elements that are going to bypass 1 or 2 of those sentences in her passive, etc. That's how I think what's going to happen. It's going to be annoying, and like I said, I think the Harsetti reign has just begun. when they started creating mage artifacts that make real big sense for Harsetti. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more artifacts that work for her. Ain's own Gown's artifact that gives you effectiveness and effect resistance, if I remember correctly, is going to be pretty OP on her on the defensive side. I just thought about that. Give her extra stats, and that's what she needs. Yeah, so we're gonna see, I think, Smilegate constantly doing this. I'm very tired of it myself, but I had to mention it just because, again, this is such a game breaking mechanic being introduced here, and I'm just surprised that they released it so fast. But I guess Frida and ML Luna is just too rampant that Smilegate's just like, nope, we gotta get her down. I remember people were showing the leaked skill set of Harsetti, like it's like a Chinese leak or whatever. Apparently it was fan made. But let's say if that was like Smilegate's first draft or something, and this was their like second iteration just to counter Frida, Smilegate is super cancer, man. Super cancer. All I have to say is this: players with a lot of speed gear will still love their speed gear. It's still something to behold. It's like a trophy, right? Doesn't matter if you can use it or not, you still have it. But for a while, especially on against the defensive Harsetti comp, your speed gear will basically mean nothing. Ultimately ends up just being like who survives, and we're gonna have some interesting defenses. It's gonna be another slow meta, unfortunately, in the arena. Like we're talking about the offensive PvP space. In RTA, I think everything's gonna stay around the same because, again, like I said, once she's banned, everything gets to be used at their full potential. But then the players who are comfortable banning some of these OP heroes like ML Luna and Sea Phantom Politis and all that kind of stuff will no longer be able to ban both. So it's going to shift the meta for sure, right? You put a peg in, you put like you basically knock down a domino here with Harsetti, and other dominoes will tumble according to their pattern. Anyways, that's my thoughts on Harsetti. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think about her? What is your theorycraft saying in terms of how to counter her right now? If you're a cleaver or someone who wants to play like an aggro playstyle, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. If you have Discord, definitely join the Discord server. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, you can do that, but my content has been very sparse lately, so do that at your own risk. But I do appreciate any support you give to me as a person, to my channel, to my community. Appreciate you. I'll talk to you guys next time.